Hey, what's going on, traders? It's Johnny here with Trader X. Thank you guys so much for tuning back into the channel today. I hope you guys have all been enjoying your Monday. And before I get started with today's recap, I just wanted to go ahead and personally thank you guys so much for all the support you guys have been showing the channel. It really does mean a lot to my brother and I, to have you guys tuning on in every day. And the fact that you guys see lots of value in our day trading recaps really means a lot to us. But I'm going to go ahead and get right into today's recap. So today was a green day. Right, you guys can see I only actively day traded two ticker symbols here, right? Ticker symbol UCO and SQQQ. And I was able to make about $60 on SQQQ and another $14 on UCO. And so these are all my filled orders. What you guys will notice is that I actually wasn't trading that much. I only had a total of 8 filled orders. I started trading at 6:30 and ended at 7:17, right? So that was about 45 minutes of day trading. And I'm going to go ahead and explain to you guys exactly how I was able to make my money today. And so what I pretty much saw was the Nasdaq was indicating signs of a sell-off, right, even during pre-market. So it was continuously getting rejected by the EMA and forming these lower highs and lower lows, right? And as this thing did try to, recover, it ultimately did find a general resistance level right around these areas, right? So it really struggled to break above here. And so heading into market open, I thought there was going to be a chance, that this thing was going to sell off given the fact that it was struggling all pre-market to break above these levels. And one thing I did want to keep in mind, right, heading into market open was although there was a clear downward direction, given the influx of buyers that come right at market open, it can cause the whatever you're trading to change direction, right? So although this thing was, making these lower highs, lower lows, and it looked pretty beautiful for a potential setup on SQQQ, there have been multiple times where, given the influx of buyers right at market open, it causes it to completely change direction. So I was ultimately prepared to, manage my risk in case that did happen, but it actually did end up playing according to plan. So once this thing did peak out, it got rejected, right around where it did pre-market. So it made sense to me why this thing could continue to fall and why I should get into SQQQ. So as this thing got rejected, I got in with a 25% position size. And as this thing continued to sell off, I averaged up, so I was fully in. And then once I saw this thing start to bounce right around here, I felt like it was in my best interest to cut the trade there, right? So I was able to make about $50 on this trade here, right? What you guys will notice is I bought in with 25% position size, averaged up, right? So I was in completely after this point, and then I sold out of the majority shares that I just bought in, right? When I saw that initial bounce, and then I cut it completely once I, really felt like this thing was going to change direction like it did. And so given the fact that it was, market had just opened right for a few minutes ago, there was still a chance that this thing could change direction, right? So this one little sell off here didn't necessarily, indicate to me that we were going to start to see a big SQQQ play on the day, right? It wasn't until I waited for this thing to peak back up and then form this lower high here, right? So notice how this thing, once it did ultimately peak back up, it didn't make a higher high than it did here, right? So what I mean is that this thing, it never ended up, hitting past this resistance area, and it actually ended up making a lower high here, right? So not only did it not go as high as it did last time, it actually went lower than it did before. So that's what I mean by lower high and lower low. So once this thing was able to sell off, right, it did start to indicate to me that this thing did potentially want to sell off on the day, right? So as this thing sold off and formed this lower high and lower low, I waited for this thing to become overextended again, right? It peaked back up, and that's exactly where I decided to get into my SQQQ play, right? So as you guys will notice, I got back into SQQQ at 6:57. And so that's right around this area here. The timestamp you guys can see is right over here. And so as you guys can see, right around 6:57, once I saw this thing break below the EMA, I bought back into SQQQ, and I did start to see a little bit of a bounce here, so I decided to actually cut my trade there. And so after that, movement happened and I was up about $60 on the day, I decided to try to, take a look at the other futures in case I felt like there was more opportunity there, and that's exactly what ended up happening. So I was looking at crude oil, right? And the reason why this one attracted me or I found this so appealing was, I took a look at the bigger time frames, and what I noticed is that crude oil has typically tended to trade sideways right the past few days, and it would find a resistance level right around these areas, and a general support level right around these areas, right? And so as I saw the future, the crude oil future, this thing had aggressively sold off, right? All pre-market and even heading into market open, this thing continuously sold off very aggressively. And so I decided to take a UCO play right around this area here. And the reason for that was as this thing was aggressively selling off, what I noticed was that every single time it broke above the EMA, it really struggled to hold, right? It would almost immediately get rejected and continue to sell off on the day. And we saw once more here, right? It broke above the EMA for a short period of time, got rejected almost immediately, and formed a lower high. And so as we did touch a bottom VWAP and we're approaching more good deal areas for a potential reversal, right? I saw this thing push up to the EMA or break above the EMA, and then right over here, not only did it actually hold well, right? So it tried selling off below EMA, but we did start to see this bounce here, right? And so that's what I found attractive given the fact that it hadn't been doing that before. And so as you guys will notice on UCO, that's exactly where I made my money, right? So as this thing picked back up and started to form this bounce here, I bought in and sold out at the peak here for a quick little scalp, right? So I was able to make $14 almost on that trade, and so that's what ended up bringing me up to, the $73 profit that I made. And so I actually ended up calling my trading there, and the reason why I decided to do that was I've been trading very bad the past few weeks. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've been, ending consistently red and just haven't been doing a good job of making sure, I was taking trades that made sense to me. So given the fact that it had only been 45 minutes and I was pretty comfortable with and happy with my performance on the day, I decided to call it, right? But as you guys can see, there was obviously a lot more money to be made on the day. So UCO actually ended up pushing up from where I sold out over 6%, right? So it actually ended up playing out pretty perfectly the way we thought it would, right? As you guys will notice, the crude oil future ended up reversing completely. And so congrats to any of you who are actually able to, take part in lots of this uptrend here. And so that's ultimately why or why I ended up seeing value in UCO, and that's ultimately also why I decided to call it on the day, right? Given I wanted to start off on a green note heading into this week, and I was pretty happy with my trading up to that point. But something else I wanted to mention to you guys is the fact that when something like this happens, right, when we see a day where the Nasdaq sells off a lot, it's really important to want to try to figure out why this thing sold off and what exactly caused this. And based off, from my understanding, I feel like there were two main reasons why the Nasdaq did sell off today. For starters, I don't know if you guys use TOS, but there's this cool little feature here called Live News, and it pretty much just tells you news that's related to the stock and what may have caused it to potentially sell off on the day, right? And so as you guys will notice, this article says that, there was lots of fear today given the fact that people are worried that the Federal Reserve is going to continue to aggressively raise the interest rates and try to in order to combat inflation, right? So there was a lot of scare of that today, which caused the market to drop. And as well as the fact that we did just break below a critical level for the Nasdaq, which was the 13,000 point, right? Price point. So right around 13,000 points, it's a number that the Nasdaq was struggling to break below. So once it actually was able to break below that, we did see lots of selling pressure follow through with the rest of the day, right? And so in my opinion, those are the two big reasons why we did start to see this sell off, right? On the bigger time frame, right? I have been mentioning that since pretty much June, the market has been on a nice little rally, and so we were due for a potential pullback, right? Doesn't mean that we had to have some form of pullback, but it really made sense to me, especially because of the fact that the market was really recovering, and I felt like it was really a bit of an overreaction to all of the good news, right? So there would be news coming out that, oh, the market had its best week or best month, since a while, right? Because the Nasdaq, as you guys know, has been selling off pretty aggressively for a while now, right? So as we started to finally indicate these higher highs and higher lows, there was lots of news coming out saying, right, that we may have potentially avoided a recession and that could have been the bottom, right? So in my opinion, there was a big overreaction to that news and all that hype, and once it finally starts to die out, right, we do start to finally see the Nasdaq correct itself. And so I'm actually pretty excited that the Nasdaq pulled back hard. As you guys know, I have 2 shares of Tesla, so it did lose me $37 on the day. But I was actually very excited to see Tesla pull back, right? Because as you guys can see, on the bigger time frames, right? Tesla itself has been consistently uptrending, and so I felt I actually, cut a majority of my shares right around these areas, right? As you guys will notice, and a big reason for that was I felt like Tesla recovered very, very quickly from when I bought in, and I felt like it was due for some form of pullback, right? And so now that we are finally starting to see this correction in price here, and it is trading right around the 860, 870 price point now, I feel like, given the as it starts to pull back, I always want to make sure I have more money available to me so that when it does start to pull back to these lower prices, I'm able to take advantage of that, right? So I can buy back in at these lower levels and decide to sell out as this thing continues to climb, right? So I am excited to see Tesla pulling back, right? And I hope you guys all prepare for these form of pullbacks, right? It's not like it came out of nowhere. The Nasdaq was having a nice run, and it was due for some form of correction. And as we all know, when the Nasdaq corrects itself, Tesla will follow suit, right? That's why we see lots of these top tech stocks, that ended red on the day, given the fact that the Nasdaq had a big red day. And so once I finally start to see the Nasdaq start to uptrend again, right? I'm gonna buy back into Tesla and really average up and really, get aggressive with this one as well. And so I do see lots of potential to Tesla. As you guys know, this thing has traded around the $1,200 price point, and even at these levels now, it's a pretty good deal. And I personally think it's gonna end up recovering, but nothing really has to happen. Every single trade you take, you want to go in with a plan and not just, think of best case scenario, but also worst case scenario, what could happen, and just always be prepared for that. And so, in terms of my day trading recap, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. I did want to mention one other stock actually that ended up gapping up a lot. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the company WAG. It's pretty much known for being a dog walking app, right? So you could find someone to come walk your dog, and so they actually recently got a ticker symbol, and it's PET. And I actually saw that this thing was up 47% on the day from where it closed at yesterday, which is absolutely insane, right? And if you guys look at it on a bigger time frame, the reason why it looks like this is because the ticker symbol itself was just started getting traded on the 10th of August, right? So it's a pretty new stock, and because of that, it's still trying to identify where its low points and high points are, right? So it was getting rejected right around the $10 price point. It found a support right around the $4.30 price point, and we are starting to climb our way back up. But as of now, based off where it got rejected before, it is approaching more overextended levels. So I do want to make you guys aware of that. I don't know if you guys were able to take part in any of this, but these pushes have been absolutely huge, right? So um, as you guys will notice, this thing actually ended up gapping up pre-market 67% from where it closed at. It corrected itself, and then it had another huge push today, right? So these type of momentum stocks are obviously a lot riskier, but they do offer a lot more reward. So if you guys do trade anything like this, I really do recommend trading it with a smaller dollar amount. And really, when you get into something like this, just make sure you don't get greedy, right? You obviously don't have a lot of data to go off of, but you do know that it has previously been rejected around the $10 price point. So as it's starting to approach these areas, it probably would make more sense to, start loading off on shares and wait for it to pull back before you buy back in more. But yeah, I did want to make you guys aware of that because this thing is moving pretty quickly, and I want to make sure you guys are prepared in case you are in it, in case this thing does end up starting to correct itself back down at the $4 price point. But yeah, that's ultimately everything I wanted to talk about in today's recap. I really do appreciate your time. If you guys are new to the channel, please go ahead and drop if you guys have any comment at all or want me to break down any stock, just go ahead and drop a comment and I will personally make a video on it even and break it down for you. But yeah, other than that, I really do appreciate your guys' support. I will be posting a recap tomorrow, so if you guys are looking forward to that, I will be posting it around the time I normally do. But I hope you guys all had a beautiful day today. I hope you guys all ended green, and I will see you guys in tomorrow's recap. Take care.